Hi friends, and welcome to the next video. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you to everyone who's sending in super thanks and watching the channel. I appreciate you all very much. And I've gotten some great questions about the last video about how to practice. So as you know, I've taught at big music colleges all over the world, and I've dealt with thousands and thousands of drummers in many different countries. And so I have a really good perspective on how to practice, right? I've designed so many practice schedules for people, and it's a very effective. If you watch the last video on how to practice, it's the most efficient practice system that I've ever come across. Of course, I perfected it through the years, and stuff like that. So what I want to talk about now is a little bit different. It's when to practice. That was a great question I got from someone that wrote in, and they weren't sure about when they should practice. Should they practice in the morning, at night? And so it raises a few different, very interesting questions. So what you have to do is follow your physiology, let's say. Without getting too fancy, physiology is the study of your body, the internal workings of your body, and how it might be affected by the external environment. Now, what does that mean? All right, I'm just gonna write this down here because it's easier to understand when you see things written down. It's important to write things down in your notebook, like I said in the last video, you have a practice log, write everything down, so important. Okay, so if you are a morning person, okay, morning person, all right, that means you wake up in the morning and you're refreshed and you're ready to go, you're ready to take on the world, you're wide awake in the morning, you function better in the morning. That's when you should do your difficult stuff, okay? Difficult. I always do this. I get ahead of myself. I'm writing. Difficult stuff and boring stuff in the morning, okay? Boring and difficult. Technically, difficult should be when you're when you're wide awake, when you're feeling a lot of energy. This is how your brain can absorb material like this in the best way. Because if you're like totally burnt out, you try to do stuff like the rebound stroke exercises or things that are, incredibly mind heavy, like practicing, for example, a rebound stroke very slowly, which you need to do. That can be really boring, especially like the double stroke roll. Like I said many times, that is one of the hardest, most boring things I've had to do because it takes a lot of concentration and brain power, right? So if you're a morning person, you tackle your difficult and boring things, technically oriented things, when you're most wide awake, okay? So what happens when you get tired, okay? When you get tired, you practice your physical stuff, okay? Practicing your physical stuff means things that require a lot of movement or a lot of, let's say, for example, motion exercises around the kit, or double bass drum, something that's loud and powerful that requires a lot of physicality, okay? You manipulate your physiology by doing physical tasks if you're tired, right? That's gonna wake you up. If you're tired and you try to do this, right, you're gonna be falling asleep on the kit, okay? It's really not an efficient way to practice. Now, if you're a night owl, like me, you do the reverse. Okay? You're awake at night. You take on the difficult, boring things, okay? When you're most awake and alert at night, difficult, boring. When you're tired in the morning, right? That's when you do your physical stuff, okay? Your physical stuff, morning, physical stuff, okay? Sorry about my handwriting. I have, my handwriting looks like a, I don't know, the guy that makes prescriptions at the pharmacy, the doctor, But so that's how you manipulate your physiology. It's an easy formula to remember. Morning person, difficult stuff, boring stuff in the morning. When you get tired, you do your physical stuff, okay? Night owl, you do your difficult stuff at night when you're most awake. In the morning, when you're tired, you do your physical stuff to get the blood moving and to manipulate your body. Okay? So it's very important to remember this in order to make a proper schedule, right? We talked about how to make schedules in the last video, but if you apply that to the wrong part of the day, when you're not so awake, it could have bad consequences. And it makes you not have fun, it makes you feel like it's drudgery and stuff like that. We want to avoid that at all costs, okay? Manipulating your physiology is super important. And this is the way that you should be doing things, okay? Now, another thing I want to talk to you about, okay, this is this is pretty much the formula, you can remember it, is what to practice. What to practice. What to practice. What to practice. Now, this is a whole can of worms, okay? If you don't pay attention to what to practice, you're just going to be like a leaf in the wind, a stick in the river. Just things are going to just pull you along, and you're just going to be at the mercy of whatever happens to you, right? We don't want that. We want to project long term, okay? We're going to project short term, medium term, and long term, okay? So short, medium, and long term, okay? So what do you do in the short term? Now, the way to think about this, if you have a lot of material to learn, okay, like say you have 50 songs you have to learn for a show, that would be your short-term goals. Learning music, songs, all right? Learning songs, learning music for a show, that's going to be a short-term goal, for example. Now, if you don't have your technique together, other things, and you're learning difficult songs, then we have to redo this a little bit. But I'm just going to give you a quick example here. Medium goals are things that you are working on for the future. Let's say styles. Styles, meaning Afro-Cuban, whatever style, Brazilian, jazz, whatever style you happen to be working on, you have to start tackling things that are in this category. And that includes technique, okay? Technique meaning independence, mostly. When you're dealing with styles, a lot of the techniques are going to change because each style has its own independence. In Afro-Cuban, it's a much different approach to independence than it is for rock or jazz, So you have to pay attention to that. Medium, short term, we have those worked out. Long term now. Long term, are your future projects. Let's say you want to learn how to play, for example, left foot clave, okay? Something very, very specialized. Left foot clave. That's a long-term thing because that takes years. So you want to approach it on a long-term basis, all right? So how do you schedule this? Your short-term goals, working on songs, you do the same thing we talked about before. If you have to chart everything out, you do it. If you're a morning person, you do that in the morning, okay, when you're fresh. If you're a night owl, you do it at night. If you're tired in the morning, then what you do is you listen to the songs, okay? You use your hearing, you let that stuff play in the background, you just submerge yourself in that music to learn the songs, right? That's one way to deal with it, right? If you're completely like me in the morning, I'm like, ugh, right? I'm not gonna sit there and start charting out everything, counting bars. I'll be hating life. Your medium stuff, styles, technique, again, the independence, that's very difficult. If you're a night owl, you do that at night. If you're tired, you do the physical aspect of it. You know, maybe you take a certain phrase that you like, for example, and work on that and work on the speed of it, or something that requires physicality, some exercises that require physicality. Now, the long term, if you want to work on long term goals, this is the approach that I took. All right. Intense practice or passive practice. Now, what does that mean? Intense means dedicating all of your time to this long-term goal. And passive practice means slowly absorbing it, like for example, just listening to music and just planning out simple ways to, do a daily schedule on what the thing that you want to learn here. For me, the intense thing was dedicating every hour of the day I had to doing whatever my long-term goal was. When I first started learning left foot clave, I would wake up at 7 in the morning, hit the practice room. Of course, I had the schedule. I had to follow a schedule because there are so many things to remember. You cannot just go with the flow and think that you're going to get anywhere in a year or two. You must absolutely have a plan, all right? A way to achieve the things that you're trying to achieve in the long term. It's like, this is a typical analogy. If you're making a flight, taking a flight overseas, the pilot that doesn't just kind of randomly go by whatever star or clouds or that stuff, they have a long-term plan. They know exactly where they need to deal with the rotation of the earth and the wind speed and all that. That's exactly the same thing in this. You must have a plan and you must chart out everything you're doing. And the intense way that I did it, I started 7 in the morning, I did my circles, I did everything, and I dedicated 100% of the day to learning left foot clave. Every exercise I could think of, I planned it out, I wrote it down, I did the circles, and I did that for months, okay? Now, of course, you have the passive way where you just listen to the music and you slowly take on exercises, but that takes a lot longer that way. And in a situation where you're, making a living with drums, you have to think about this intense way, I think, right? Okay, let's take another example. If you're trying to learn how to read, right? Read drum charts. You should also have short, medium, and long-term goals. Your short-term goals should be simply to understand what all the signs are. What is a repeat sign? What is a coda sign? What is DS al coda? What the title of the song means, where you're gonna find the BPMs, all that stuff is pretty easy to see on a chart. Your medium length goals should be interpretation. How are you going to interpret 8 bars? How are you going to know when to go from the hi-hat to the ride? Take the different sections of the tunes, know when to orchestrate things according to the different sections of the tunes, okay? And your long-term goals should be to be able to sight read a chart. Now that's a gradual buildup. You don't just suddenly learn how to sight read a chart and learn about orchestration all in one day. It's a pretty massive endeavor. Very, very important, and it takes a while, especially if you're dealing with a lot of styles, because interpretation and orchestration is a lot different in, let's say, rock than it is in funk, or again, Afro-Cuban, or Persian music, or Greek music. There's a lot to be said about orchestration and how to hit figures in big band. Big band to me is like where we separate the men from the boys, okay? Big band requires a lot of orchestration study. And that is a long-term goal. So you see how you start to plan these things out, right? All right, in the subject of what to practice, also, you have to think about the point that you're at in your career. If you have material that you have to learn, for example, in New York, I used to be playing a lot of different, with a lot of different artists all the time. And some of those artists had extremely difficult music, right? I would have to learn material for 5 gigs in a week. 1 week, 5 different artists, super hard music. It was nuts. Eventually you come up with a way to absorb all that material. But if you don't have a foundation and all the things we talked about before, reading especially, orchestration, technique, whatever, you have to be able to navigate different styles and learn how to approach things in a very efficient way. Depending on where you are in your career, what you have to do will determine what to practice. So if you have, for example, a lot of gigs coming up that require, let's say, soca knowledge of soca music, right? Let's say soca. You're going to practice. If you've never played soca before, the independence is not difficult, but you have to work on the independence. You have to work on vocabulary, right? And you have to work on the different grooves. So these 3 things should be categorized under the system that we have here. All right, everything else should be taken a back seat. If you have soca gigs coming up and you've never played soca, drop everything else and start learning this stuff. Drop your funk independence, drop your jazz independence, drop your vocabulary study for every other style, and drop the study of grooves and every other style. You got gigs coming up that are gonna pay the rent. And if you mess up the gig, it's bad news. So everything has to be pushed aside and you immerse yourself in soca. Do the circles, work out the independence. It's not that hard. The soca grooves are not hard, but there are very particular nuances in the way you approach the kit. Vocabulary is a part of that, and the grooves, is especially a part of that. When you're approaching a thing like soca, you always have to remember also, talking about nuances, the balance, between the kit, for example. How loud is the hi-hat compared to the snare and the bass drum? And the fills, and what cymbals to have that make it sound authentic and all that kind of stuff. So many considerations to think about. All right. When you're approaching what to practice, there are many factors that you have to keep in mind. It's not just, willy-nilly, I'm going to practice this and that. And, you really have to take into consideration what you're trying to do, your short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. And that brings me to this, all right? Goals. You must have goals in order to figure out what to practice. If you don't have a goal, you're just going to flounder. That's a bad thing. Floundering around is bad because it just wastes time. And remember, the most important equation, life span, right? And drumming. Your lifespan will never be enough to cover all of drumming. That's why we do this. You need to have 10 lifetimes to learn everything there is to learn. Now, if you're just a hobby drummer and you want to, enjoy drumming and play on the weekends and stuff, that's a much simpler approach, but you still need to have a system to practice so you can have fun and sound good and have people want to play with you, right? If you're a pro, though, if you want to be a pro, all this stuff, especially this, you have to think about. All right, my friends, thank you very much for watching this video, and I appreciate the questions that brought me to talk about this. Now remember, I'm doing remote recording here in Bali. You need drumming for your song? We have it here at the studio, live drums for your songs. We're doing hand consultations. I'm doing hand consultations, only $100 for an hour. We do it on WhatsApp or Skype or whatever thing you have in mind. Facebook, doesn't matter. $100 hand consultations. And the lesson site is waiting for you. Only $200 for the year-long program. Remember, next year is going back to the original price, $300. So join soon for Christmas. It's a great gift for someone if you're thinking about that. We have the Elite program also, which is the most intense course that we have that I offer. Okay, so thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace. Hi friends, I'm here to tell you about an exciting new program I have on my lesson site. It's called the Elite Program. In this program, you're going to be working with me very, very closely while I guide you through the entire site. The Elite Program, why do I call it that? Because I'm searching for the most dedicated people to study this material. If you want to be a professional drummer, you're going to have to change your life. You're going to have to put drums ahead of everything. And I'm here to make sure that that decision is something that's going to benefit your life in the most positive way it can. Some websites have guest artists that come in and show you some stuff for about an hour and then they leave and you never hear from them again. You're stuck with the guys on the site that may or may not have much experience at all. In this program, you're going to be working with me directly, 3 hours a day for an entire week online, okay? We're going to be having conference online, video conference, 3 hours a day for a week. In this week, I'm going to guide you through everything, prepare you. I'm going to watch you play. I'm going to watch you practice. We're going to work together on things in the moment, okay, which is very important. Now, why the price, you may ask? Well, an online video session with me usually costs $270 for 2 hours. A private lesson with me in New York costs $100 an hour. A lot of guys charge a lot more than $100, maybe $200, $300 an hour. My price is $100 an hour. I think that's fair. So if you take that many hours with me, okay, 7 times 3, that's 21, that's $2,100. The price of the course is $1,900. So you're already saving $400 by doing it this way. $400 savings. Plus, you have the full year membership to the site with email support, Skype support, and everything else. This unique study situation has been brought about by the technology we enjoy today. Before, you would have had to travel to New York, hang out with me, come to my house, you know, have all those expenses of going to New York, which many guys have done. But now we can do things in a much more, let's say, efficient basis, more economical, and a way that you can be constantly in touch, not only having me in New York there while you're there. Okay, so this is, I think, an amazing opportunity to study. I've taught at some of the best drumming institutions in the world. That's not something that everybody can say. And I have all that knowledge right here waiting for you. If you're serious about your drumming, the lesson site is there. And I'm there as well, ready to make sure you get the most out of the drumming experience and having drums in your life. Okay? I hope you'll check out the Elite Program. The most innovative curriculum there is comes from having the experience from teaching all over the world, drummers at every level from the highest drumming cultures on the planet. What you're going to need to participate is a way to interact with me online. You need to have a drum set up with your camera, your phone, or whatever. It has to sound halfway decent, and a good Wi-Fi connection so we have uninterrupted streaming. Now, as far as the price goes, if you use PayPal, you can break up the payments. PayPal offers you a variety of ways you can pay. You can use your credit card, and if you don't have access to those things, just write me and we'll figure out a way. But this is a very important program and I think you're gonna love it. It's not a common opportunity to study drums, so I hope you'll take it and make the best of it. All right, folks, see you on the Elite Program. Peace.